Hey guys, Nathan Brendan Masters. I know with my upload schedule, the algorithm isn't going to be doing me any favors anytime soon. But I did want to do a quick video. Simply, I haven't done one in a while, and I said I want to do a video about what I use for making comic books. I'll give you like the top three, maybe top four things I use, and we can talk about why I use what I do. We'll start off with this. You probably knew that this was coming. I'm on my my little drawing board here, but this is Strathmore, Bristol. Pretty much industry standard if you're trying to get into Marvel or DC. If you're doing your own stuff, you can use whatever, whatever works for you. This is kind of what people use, particularly inkers. They like the Strathmore Bristol. This is their ruled paper. So this is specifically made for comic books. So it has trim lines here and everything. Trim lines, bleed lines. You've seen this paper before. You've probably seen it before if you go into art shops. Blick sells it. I think Michaels sells it as well. And of course, you can get it from Amazon and places like that. But this is already set up for comic books, 24 sheets, and that's 270 GSM. So this stands up to ink, pencils, erasing. If you want to do a little bit of ink wash, you can do it with this. Even if you're doing heavy washes, you should be good with this paper. And I'll show you what I also use. And what a lot of artists will do is they'll just get standard Strathmore Bristol. This is actually the 300 series. It's a little bit brighter, as you can see. Looks brighter to me. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't know. This looks brighter than this. So this, I get that. And like I say, at this size, this is a special size. I trim this paper too, and I can do mini comics if I want to do a mini comic on here, and I can also do regular size comics. I have it trimmed up to that size where I could just reduce it all the way down to mini comic size, or I could just slightly reduce it down to comic size. So that's going to bring me to this. And my third favorite is Canson. Canson paper. You guys have known that I use Canson a lot. Now, this was all done. This is from Demon Noir. You guys remember that. This is ink wash. A lot of heavy ink on here. You see where the wash and everything is. And this paper stood up to it. And so this is pretty much on the same level as the Strathmore. Now, what I hear is that some pencilers prefer Canson. This is Canson Bristol board. And inkers kind of prefer Strathmore. But Strathmore tends to be the industry standard overall. The thing with Canson is that Canson paper tends to cost less. You get 25 pages and you get it for less than the Strathmore, but that's depending on where you go, because I've been looking at this on Amazon and the Strathmore is cost less, but sometimes you go to the art store and the Canson costs less. I mean, even when you talk about the comic book paper, Canson has a line of paper just like this, and it's got they have their own rules in there. It's called Fanboy. And it's actually more expensive than the Strathmore, which, I don't know if that's just because of the store I went to or what. I go to Blick here in Chicago. But there's another paper that I use. And this I don't use as much. But this is actually very good quality paper. And now I might not say it, but this is EON paper. And the reason I don't use it as much is simply because of the price. So I'm going to open this up. Okay, so this is my own. I put my own rule on here. See, I put my own bleed and trim lines on there. And basically, this is EON paper. Now, I got this because EON had a sale on irregular paper. So they had misprint or something go wrong and they were selling this. It was like 36 pages a pack. I was like, oh yeah. And I got a few of these. And what I did is I actually trimmed them down to this size. So like I said, I don't usually draw at the 11 by 17 size. This is the usual size that I draw at, or I draw at that small size that you saw. And this paper is really good. This is really nice paper. Again, it stands up to a lot of stuff. Pencil ink, ink wash, you know, just anything you need to do. You can do alcohol markers, any of that kind of stuff on this paper, okay? The thing about this paper that everybody wants it for is because they have their own process. And I think I've talked about this paper before, but this paper is bright white paper. So if you're using an ink that's very black and it's against this paper, it makes your art look really nice standing up against this paper. So it just makes it look so much better than like if you were doing it on a dull paper or something like that. Strathmore is like that too. You get a little bit of a whiter paper with Strathmore, and the black ink on the white paper looks really nice. So keep that in mind. This is EON paper, and they have their own ink that you can use with this paper as well, and it works out really nice. But that's the only reason I don't really get EON paper is because of the price, but it's really good paper. And if you can afford it, I'd say get it. If you can't afford it, then get the Canson or Strathmore. Now, when it comes to ink, this is pretty much industry standard. This is Speedball Superblack. This tends to be what a lot of people use. It's industry standard, so it must be pretty good. I've tested it a little bit. Seems to work fine. It is not my go-to, though. My go-to ink is this. This is Blick Black Cat Waterproof India ink. You get this from Blick, and it's worked very well. In the last video you saw me drawing in, that's what I use, Blick Black Cat, and never had a problem with it. I use it to this day. That's my go-to simply because, again, because of price, but something that I've discovered, and this is not going to be my go-to because it's too expensive, but this is carbon black. Each of these inks I have a different purpose for. Now, the reason I bought the carbon black was because it's this super dark ink and it works well in things like fountain pens. So I have this in my fountain pen, but I also have it in my brush pen. So I put it in here. I've tried other India inks in these brush pens and they get clogged up. The Black Cat is okay in here. It's okay. It's not the best. The carbon black, I put it in here. Haven't had a problem yet. It's good ink. Now I have these two cheap Chinese fountain pens. One is fine and one is extra fine, and I put it in there as well. And again, no problem. Ink flows very well. Not an issue at all. Now my only issue with this ink is that it's expensive. It's like $16 a bottle or something, if I remember correctly. So for this bottle is $16. For this, it was like $5. So yeah, this was $6. So probably won't be buying a lot of this. But right now, it is my favorite ink for my brush here. So I don't know. We'll figure something out with that. But the other ink that I use, and I've just started using this, is Ultradraw. Now this is an ink that goes in the technical pens, and so I use this with my dip pens. And this is something I learned from Jimmy Reyes. He does this thing where he kind of pours a little bit onto the pen. I don't do that all the time. I tend to do, like everybody else, I have like a little well that I dip the pen in. What I find is that when you work with a dip pen and you're using this, it just flows off the pen. And like when you look, like you don't have to clean the pen. like, I mean, you should still clean your pen, but like if I use like any of these other inks, they're gonna kind of stick. The I think the best ink I've used with my pen is the Blick Black Cat. This is the best ink that I've used with my dip pen. But after using this, this is my go-to ink for dip pens, and I'm gonna get a big bottle of it. And so, like a lot of our, we always have like a lot of ink around. Now, I could use honestly any of these inks for a dip pen. This is again the Super Black. This is used a lot for dip pens. This can be used for dip pens. Here's another thing that I've just started using, and this is Pro Black. Now, this is a thick ink. For those of you looking for a thick ink, if you don't want to use Sumi, you have this. Look at that. You can tell how thick that is. Look. That's crazy. Let me show you Blick. I mean, you see that, right? Let me see if I can do them both without spilling them, because that would be bad. Okay, so here they are, both shaking them both. You can tell, right? I don't see a lot of people talking about this. This is not a pen ink. This is a brush ink. This is an ink that you put your brush in, and like I say, dip it in a little bit of water, put your brush in, and then you'll get this to work really well. Dip pen ink. This is probably going to end up being my go-to because it's easier to get. I can just go to Blick and grab this. If you're going to end up working for Marvel or DC, you're probably going to want to go with Speedball Superblack. So there's that one. An ink I don't use as much, but I really like. This is Yasutomo, a traditional Chinese ink. And this is actually, and of course you see it says Ultra Black. This is what they call Sumi ink, not India ink, Sumi ink. And this stuff is very black, very, very black, okay? But, let me see, I used this for something on here. I don't know if it was any of these pages. It might not be any of these pages. Oh, yeah. Like a lot of this stuff, a lot of this was done in Sumi. Like anything that wasn't going to be, that I didn't want to dilute was done in Sumi. A lot of this was done with Black Cat. Like this was done with Sumi. Anything that's kind of thick like this was done with Sumi. This stuff was done with the rest of the stuff was done with Black Cat. So this is that Sumi? No, that's Black Cat. Okay, so this stuff was all done with Black Cat. Wait a minute. Here's something done with Sumi right here. But that was done with it's done with Sumi, but it's done with a different type of Sumi. That was done with the Zig Sumi. And the Zig Sumi is different. It's dark like normal Sumi ink, but it's a little bit thinner. It's specifically made to draw with, but it's also still a brush ink. So, in my opinion, so that's the Sumi ink we're gonna get in there. So this is my generic, this is a generic brush here. It literally just says artist brush. Okay, can you see that? I don't know if you can focus on it, but it just says artist brush. So this is a 0 round. I have, I do have my Winsor Newton, but it's not the Sable brush that everybody uses. The Series 7, was it Series 7 3 round? It's not that one, but this is what the Sumi ink looks like. I think a lot of you guys have probably seen Sumi ink by now, but this is how thick and how dark it is. So if I'm actually doing brush inking, Check that out. You look at this and you can see just how dark this ink is. See how dark that is? That's a really nice ink. If I'm gonna brush ink, and what I mean by, and when I say brush ink, I don't mean using my brush pen. This is the brush pen gets a certain type of ink. I use the carbon black in here, because if I use this in a brush pen, it will never be the same. And believe me, I know, because I've done it. It will never be the same again. So never use Sumi ink in a brush pen unless you know that somehow, some way your brush pen will support it. Because I destroyed a brush pen that way. I have two more now, but I destroyed my first brush pen was destroyed because I put Sumi ink in it. But those are the inks I use, and those are the different reasons I use them. For something like this, when I did Demon Noir, let's see what pages. This type of stuff. If you want to do this type of stuff, I think this is a, I want to say this is alcohol marker. Is that alcohol marker? Yeah, some of that was alcohol marker. This right here, some of this was alcohol marker. But this with the washes and everything, this was all Blick. This is all Black Cat. That's the only ink I was using at the time. So this is what you can do with Black Cat. You can get these textures and things if that's what you want to do. And again, like I said, I was surprised that this was done. This is done on a regular Canson Bristol board. Okay, so I have this, and this is actually, if I'm doing ink wash, this is usually my go-to, which is Canson XL watercolor paper. This is pulp paper. We're all familiar with it. This is the cheap Canson paper that you get in the art store. Now if I do watercolor, or not water, well, yeah, watercolor too, but if I do ink wash, I tend to gravitate toward this paper. I know it's going to stand up to it, but as you saw with the other Canson paper, came out fine. And just so you know, this is the paper. This Canson paper is the stuff that you see in the, it's the basic stuff you see in the art store. It's Canson XL. It'll have the yellow flap on it, and it'll just say Canson XL on it. But it's also a 100-pound paper, and you'll get 25 sheets instead of 20. Oh, there is one more thing. Deleter white. This is my go-to for correction ink, and if I want to do like a white ink splatter or something like that, it's this. If you're gonna do corrections, I use it like whiteout, and I've never used I've never used water with it. I always just kind of get a little bit on the brush and just go over the area. It dries a lot smoother than whiteout. Looks much better than whiteout. So get you some of this, and you can see how thick it is. I do have some PH Martin over here somewhere. This Bombay white. Now you can look at this. This is a little bit thinner. Now if you want to do something with a dip pen, say you need to, you want to go over an area or something, you want to use this stuff. This stuff is much thinner. So that's the Dr. Martin's Bombay white. This with your brush, this with your dip pen. Oh yeah, there's one more thing, and this is something that everybody can get a hold of, and it's this Precise V5. Now, a lot of people have talked about Precise V5 pens. You can search YouTube, see people talking about these. The big rub for these is simply the thin line that it gets. So if you're trying to get a thin line and you don't want to use a dip pen, you don't want to use a brush, you want an ultra thin line, That's what you get with this pen. Right there. So you can, and like if you want to do cross hatching, you can do it with this pen. Look at it. Right there. So there you go. You want to do cross hatching, you can use a pen like this. You don't have to use a dip pen. You don't have to use any of that. You can get your Precise V5 right there. And they also have a pen called a Precise V7. So there you have it, guys. Any of this stuff you want, I have affiliate links in the description. You can use those. If you use those, I get a little something back. You can check these things out and see if any of it's right for you. Again, like I say, my go-tos. Number one is going to be Strathmore or Canson. If I have money, it's going to be EON. My go-to ink is this Blick Black Cat. And my go-to dip pen, the Takakawa. This thing right there. I don't know why I did that. That's a weird way to handle a pen. And my go-to brush is this one, the Silver Black Sable. The Silver Black Velvet. And I think that's it. Hey guys, it's Nathan. I'm doing the edit right now, and I can't believe I left out one important thing that I use all the time, and that is the Pentel Fude brush pen. I know everybody uses these, but that is my go-to brush pen. Zig has a pen that's almost exactly like it. I think they're probably all made in the same factory, but the Pentel Fude pen is my go-to brush pen. That's my main stuff. So that means if you get these things right here, you'll be good. The reason I'm not suggesting carbon black is simply because of price. If it wasn't for the price, this would probably be my go-to, but I know a lot of you guys probably don't have a lot of money, so you want to grab this or this. So these two are good, and the reason I go with these two is because they can, they can do everything. So they're good for your dip pen. They're good for brushes. They're good for everything. Like I say, this is industry standard, and this is a cheap store brand ink that gets the job done. So I recommend these two for you guys. But right now, this and the carbon black are my go-to. So, all right, guys. That's it. You guys take it easy. Nathan Brandon Masters. Awesome.
Don't look back, we're here to stay. A life we knew would come one day. And this is it, the borderline to where the future leaves us behind. The fire will burn.